The girl was covered in blood as she rushed into the public cafeteria. She didn't ask for help, nor did she explain why she was hurt. Instead, she pointed at the giant screen and told everyone that the outside world they had watched their entire lives was completely fake. The world shown on the screen was always a gray and lifeless wasteland. The withered trees were nothing but bare branches, forming a scene straight out of the apocalypse. The people inside the silo had been told since childhood that the outside world was unsafe, but Allison insisted that everything on the screen was fabricated. The real surface outside was completely habitable for humans. Her husband tried to calm her down, but she was done staying silent. She claimed that the silo had been deceiving everyone all along. People here could only obey the pact, and anyone who spoke recklessly would be targeted by judicial. The more her husband listened, the more terrified he became, because he was the sheriff. More than anyone else, he understood what it truly meant to say the wrong thing in this place. But Allison no longer cared. In front of everyone, she said the one sentence nobody was allowed to say.
I want to go out!
The moment those words left her mouth, there was no taking them back. Because inside the silo, anyone who voluntarily asked to leave would be immediately granted permission. But that permission was not freedom, it was a death sentence. Allison was soon locked inside a cell. The sheriff stared at her through the bars, hoping his wife would take those words back. But she was more certain than ever. She once again insisted that the images on the screen were fake. Everything the people in the silo saw every day was a fabricated illusion. Those who were sent outside to clean saw something completely different outside from what appeared on the screen. That was why they picked up the cleaning cloth and desperately wiped the lens clean. They believed that if they cleaned the lens, the people inside would finally see the truth. But what they didn't know was that the screen could still keep lying. Allison had already made up her mind. She would put on the protective suit and walk out through that door herself. As long as the sheriff saw the lens clean, it would mean that outside she had seen a different world. On the day of the cleaning, the workers fitted Allison into the protective suit. Radiation-proof tape sealed every possible air leak. The crucial cleaning cloth was also placed into her pocket. Allison stood inside the quarantine chamber, listening to the mayor's official sentence of exile. The sheriff took the document to read aloud, his face covered in tears. But he still had to follow protocol and recite the official speech. They hoped she would clean the lens, so the residents inside the silo could see the outside world more clearly. And by doing so, remember that the silo was safe, while the outside world was forever dangerous. After the sentence was delivered, Allison expressed her love for the sheriff one final time. Then the helmet was placed on her head, and she walked toward the silo exit according to protocol. The metal doors slowly opened. Wearing the protective suit, Allison stepped forward one step at a time. The sheriff personally shut the massive door, saying goodbye to the woman he loved. After a full-body decontamination, the outer silo door finally opened. Everyone inside the silo waited before the giant screen. They carefully stared at the camera feed, watching the familiar image. A dead tree stood upon the gray wasteland, surrounded by apocalyptic desolation. Soon a figure appeared in that silent world. Everyone waited for her to clean the lens. Because if she did, the silo could continue telling everyone that the outside world was truly dangerous, and the silo was humanity's only chance to survive. That was the genius behind the cleaning ritual. Allison wanted to use the cleaning to tell the sheriff the truth, that the outside world was completely different. But the silo could reinterpret the cleaning as proof of fear instead. After finishing the cleaning, Allison walked toward the hill. But after only a few steps, she suddenly collapsed. Everyone gasped. Only when the figure struggled back to her feet did people finally breathe again. But before anyone could react, the figure stumbled and fell once more. From that day on, the sheriff could no longer trust the screen. Years passed, yet he still stood before the window, staring at the gray barren hillside outside, believing the image was nothing but an illusion. But if he wanted to know whether his wife truly escaped safely, there was only one way. He had to go outside himself. So he willingly walked into a prison cell and threw the key away. His elderly deputy still tried to stop him. He begged him not to say those words, because everyone knew once they were spoken, the rules would immediately take effect. But the sheriff had already made his decision. This time he would go see the truth himself. And so he said the exact same words as his wife. The mayor finished reading his farewell speech, then stepped aside to clear the path before him. The sheriff slowly entered the airlock chamber. As the doors opened, he froze in place. The residents inside the silo all nervously stared at the giant screen, because from the moment they were born, they had never once left the silo. And now they too hoped that the person outside would keep moving forward. Outside, the sheriff stood there in shock, because the image inside his helmet showed that everything his wife had said was true. Outside was filled with green trees, and life flourished everywhere. The images inside the silo were indeed completely fake. To let the residents see the truth, the sheriff immediately walked toward the camera lens. Under everyone's watchful eyes, he wiped the dust off the lens once again. But the image on the screen still showed no change at all. After finishing the cleaning, the sheriff turned and walked away. But within seconds, he began struggling to breathe. His steps became increasingly unstable. Then, the sheriff did something nobody could believe. After collapsing to the ground, he actually removed his helmet. Faced with everything before him, the sheriff had no time to process it. Using his final breath, he crawled toward the spot where his wife had fallen 3 years earlier. Then, he finally collapsed for good. The anxious residents fell into despair once again. Their hope of leaving the silo had been shattered yet again. But the truly terrifying part was how the silo controlled everyone inside it. They made the residents believe that the outside world meant certain death. Yet among the crowd, one person reacted very differently. because the sheriff had secretly contacted her before. He had even written a final letter in advance, asking the girl to take his place. To wear the sheriff's badge and continue uncovering the truth, the silo's leaders were desperately hiding. Some people will choose silence just to survive, but there will always be others who would rather risk their lives to personally push open the door leading to the truth.